While the world's attention has been fixed on West Africa, where Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso broke from ECOWAS to form the Alliance of Sahel States, a far more explosive confrontation is brewing in the north. The continent's next great showdown is here, as North Africa splits into two camps, with Algeria and Morocco drawing their battle lines in the sand. As Morocco races to become America's premier ally in Africa, Algeria is doubling down on its partnership with Russia and China. France, reeling from its losses in the Sahel, is now trying to settle old scores in its former colony. But this time, Algeria is not just refusing to back down, it's leading a new Pan-African order that directly challenges Western dominance. From Russian stealth fighters landing in the Algerian desert and Chinese billions funding megaprojects to a new generation of military leaders inspired by Captain Ibrahim Traore and a diplomatic war over the fate of Western Sahara, the continent's balance of power is shifting with seismic force. In this episode, we are diving deep into why Algeria's defiant stand against France is more than a diplomatic spat, how this conflict is fueling a continent-wide anti-colonial awakening, and why the outcome could reshape Africa for generations to come. To truly understand why Algeria and France are locked in this high-stakes standoff, you must understand the colonial wounds that never healed. For 132 years, from 1830 to 1962, Algeria wasn't merely a colony. It was legally and administratively considered a part of France itself. The French occupation wasn't just about exploiting resources. It was a systematic attempt to erase Algerian identity, language, and culture. The war for independence that raged from 1954 to 1962 was one of the 20th century's most brutal conflicts, claiming the lives of up to 1.5 million Algerians. French forces deployed torture, scorched-earth tactics, and mass internment in ways that horrified the world. Yet, unlike other colonial powers, France has never fully apologized for these atrocities, let alone offered reparations. Hopes for reconciliation flickered when Emmanuel Macron, who once called colonization a crime against humanity, took office. Algeria responded with cautious optimism, ready to turn a new page. But those hopes were incinerated in 2024 when Macron, in a stunning reversal, officially backed Morocco's claim over Western Sahara, a territory Algeria views as the last bastion of the anti-colonial struggle. For Algiers, this wasn't just a policy pivot, it was a profound betrayal, confirming that France still sees Algeria not as a sovereign equal, but as a subordinate to be manipulated. That was the moment Algeria decided that patience had run out. What began as simmering tension over Western Sahara quickly erupted into a full-blown diplomatic war in 2025. Facing domestic pressure and criticism over immigration, Emmanuel Macron attempted to project strength by getting tough with Algeria. He declared that France must be strong and command respect, a choice of words that landed in Algiers with the subtlety of a colonial decree. The immediate catalyst was Algeria's refusal to accept criminal deportees from France, a move Paris saw as an affront to its sovereignty, and Algiers saw as France trying to offload its social problems. The situation exploded with the jailing of two dual nationals, a writer and a journalist, on charges their supporters deemed political. Macron retaliated by suspending visa exemptions for Algerian diplomats and threatening wider sanctions. Algeria's response was swift and decisive. It tore up the entire 2013 visa agreement, declaring that French diplomats will now face the exact same treatment as their Algerian counterparts in France. This led to a tit-for-tat expulsion of diplomats, the recalling of ambassadors, and the freezing of consular services. But this was more than a diplomatic spat. It was a public and defiant rejection of France's neo-colonial posture. On social media, Algerians rallied behind their government with hashtags like Respect Algeria, celebrating a firm stance against their former colonizer. The revolutionary spirit of 1962 was alive and well in 2025. As France tried and failed to strong-arm its former colony, a profound strategic realignment was taking place. Russian Su-34 fighter bombers, painted in desert camouflage, were spotted flying over Algeria, confirming a multi-billion-dollar arms deal that equips the nation with some of Moscow's most advanced military technology. The Su-34 is a battle-hardened striker fighter, but it's just the beginning. Algeria has already taken delivery of Su-35 air superiority jets and is slated to receive the Su-57, Russia's fifth-generation stealth fighter. making its air force one of the most formidable in the region. This is layered on top of an arsenal that is already 90% Russian, including elite T-90 battle tanks and S-300 air defense systems. Yet, Russia is not Algeria's only strategic partner in the east. China has surged to become its largest trading partner, weaving Algeria into its Belt and Road Initiative. Over 1,300 Chinese companies are now active in the country, building everything from transcontinental highways to the new $6 billion deepwater megaport. Chinese investments approved since 2022 alone have surpassed $4.5 billion, and Beijing is now helping construct massive solar power stations in the Sahara. This eastern pivot is as much ideological as it is economic. Algeria, Russia, and China are united in their vision for a multipolar world free from Western dictates. When UN holds votes on Ukraine, Algeria abstains. When Algeria applied to join BRICS, it was Moscow and Beijing that championed its bid. The message to Paris is unequivocal. Algeria has powerful friends who treat it as sovereign partner, not as colonial subjects. While Algeria turned eastward, its regional rival Morocco has been sprinting west, straight into the strategic embrace of the United States. This partnership was supercharged in 2020 by the Trump administration-Lagman deal. In exchange for Morocco normalizing relations with Israel under the Abraham Accords, the U.S. recognized Moroccan sovereignty over the disputed Western Sahara. This single move upended decades of international consensus and gave Morocco the superpower backing it had long craved. Today, that partnership is deeper than ever. Morocco hosts African Lion, the largest U.S. military exercise on the continent, with the 2025 edition bringing over 10,000 troops from 15 nations to its soil. Advanced American F-16 fighter jets, Patriot missile defense systems, and Apache attack helicopters are flowing into Moroccan military as it cements its role as Washington's security anchor in the region. The ultimate prize, however, could be the relocation of the U.S. African Command, AFRICOM, from its current headquarters in Germany to Morocco. Moving AFRICOM to Moroccan soil would give the U.S. an unparalleled military footprint in North Africa, ideal for monitoring the Sahel, the Mediterranean, and the Atlantic. For Morocco, hosting AFRICOM will be a geopolitical jackpot, solidifying its status as America's indispensable African ally. Morocco has masterfully positioned as a stable pro-Western power in a volatile region, but this American embrace isolates Morocco from the growing anti-colonial sentiment on the continent, making it a prime example of what leaders like Ibrahim Traore call serving foreign masters. The choice for African nations is becoming stark: align with the West or join the new Pan-African resistance. At the center of this continental rift is a vast expanse of desert that most of the world ignores, Western Sahara. This territory, roughly the size of the United Kingdom, but with a population smaller than Luxembourg, has become the ideological battleground for the future of Africa. For Morocco, annexing the territory is about national pride and completing its territorial integrity, a project it began in 1975 with the Green March, when 350,000 civilians crossed the border after Spain, the colonial power, withdrew. For Algeria, however, Western Sahara represents the continent's last unresolved case of decolonization. It supports the indigenous Sahrawi people and their Polisario Front government in exile, which has been fighting for an independent state ever since. Algeria hosts over 173,000 Sahrawi refugees in camps near its border, viewing their cause as a sacred defense for self-determination, the very principle Algerians fought and died for. Trump's 2020 recognition of Morocco's claim, later endorsed by France and Spain, seemed to create unstoppable momentum for Rabat, but Algeria refused to yield. When Algerian officials speak of Western Sahara and Palestine in the same breath, they are invoking a powerful history of anti-colonial solidarity that resonates deeply across the global south. The African Union officially recognizes the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic as a member state, with support from post-liberation nations like South Africa and Namibia. This has split the continent, mirroring the new East-West divide and turning a remote desert conflict into a proxy war for Africa's soul. As diplomats debate in air-conditioned halls, a grassroots revolutionary fire is sweeping across the Sahel, with 37-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso as his charismatic icon. When Traore seized power in 2022, he did more than just stage a coup. He ignited a Pan-African revival centered on simple, powerful message: Africa must reclaim its sovereignty and cast off the chains of neocolonialism. He has expelled French troops, terminated colonial-era military pacts, and welcomed Russian security advisors. More importantly, He forged a new confederation with Mali and Niger, the Alliance of Sahel States. This bloc is not just a political statement, it's a new reality, complete with a 5,000-strong joint military force, common passport, and a shared mission to achieve true liberation. The ideological parallels with Algeria's own history are unmistakable. Like the Algerian freedom fighters of the 1950s, these young military leaders see themselves as revolutionaries battling a foreign imperialist power. Traore channels the spirit of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's martyred hero, speaking of African dignity in a language that echoes Algeria's founding fathers. Across the continent, from Lagos to Nairobi, young Africans share viral clips of Traore's speeches, celebrating leaders who finally stand up to the West. Hashtags like France Quit Africa trend continuously, fueled by a chorus of support from Algeria. This is not just random anti-Western sentiment, it's the formation of a coherent ideological front. What we are witnessing is nothing less than the dawn of a new Cold War on African soil, but with a critical difference. The continent is fracturing into two distinct camps. A Western Allied bloc exemplified by Morocco and backed by American arms, and an anti-Western resistance axis centered on Algeria and the Alliance of Sahel States, and supported by Russian hardware and Chinese capital. The stakes are immense. Africa, with its vast deposits of minerals critical for the global green energy transition, is the grand prize in a new great game between superpowers. Nations are being forced to choose sides. Morocco hosts American war games while Algeria welcomes Russian state jets. Nigeria remains in the Western orbit while Niger tears down French flags and raises Russian ones. But unlike the first Cold War, African nations are not passive pawns. Leaders like President Tebboune and Captain Traore are active agents, shaping their own destinies and writing the rules of engagement. They are boldly asserting that Africa will no longer accept lectures on democracy from nations that seek to undermine their sovereignty, and they are embracing partners who offer respect. While this path carries risks, from a potential hot war between Algeria and Morocco to the fracturing of regional economic blocs, it also creates unprecedented opportunities. African nations can now leverage the competition between global powers to secure better terms for their resources and development. The confrontation between Algiers and Paris is therefore a symbol of something much larger: Africa's collective refusal to be a subordinate. From the Sahel to the Sahara, a new generation is standing up to declare, "We are not your backyard. We are sovereign nations and we will forge our own future." This is Frontline Africa. If you value truth unfiltered and power reframed from an African perspective, subscribe, like, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I am Ezekiel Enegeta. See you in the next one.